Thank you and good morning. And I'm glad we're all here together on this holiday weekend. We have Labor Day tomorrow. I learned recently something of the history of Labor Day. Does anyone know when Labor Day began? Well, it was in the late 1800s. And if you think about how our country was moving from a largely agrarian society to factories and such, there became large groups of laborers, and in New York City, I think it was carpenters and machinists got together and had a big parade one day to celebrate the labor movement and all that everybody did. And as one observer put it, they had a party afterward. Apparently there was a keg of beer on every level surface. So is that different than now? I don't know. Maybe it's not so different. Well, that idea caught on, and other cities started doing a labor celebration, and about 12 years later, the federal government established what we now know as Labor Day. So that's a little bit of the history of it. I also learned that if you think about during World War II, that idea of the labor force really took on a new and deeper meaning. Many of the men were fighting overseas, and so the country mobilized, and women went to work in factories, building airplanes and all kinds of things to support the war effort. Can we see that picture? So we know this. This is the "we can do it" image, right? So who is that? Rosie the Riveter. Right. Yes. So this is the image we have come to know as Rosie the Riveter. This image was commissioned in 1942 by Westinghouse. You can see the W on the collar and down near the bottom, Westinghouse, for the war effort. Westinghouse was one of the many companies making a tremendous effort towards supporting the U.S. in World War II. And there was a song at the time that was very popular called Rosie the Riveter. And everyone knew this song. And Norman Rockwell, the painter, if we can see the next picture, did this cover for the Saturday Evening Post. This is Rosie the Riveter, named from that song. Now, people were so taken by this image and the whole concept of the mobilization of women that they asked the publisher, can we use this? Can we reproduce it? And the publisher said no, would not let anyone use this image. People think maybe he was afraid that the song's writers would come after him, something about using that song. So for whatever reason, he said, no, you can't use the image. So this one, which is a lot less familiar, kind of faded, and recently the first one we saw is the one we now know as Rosie the Riveter. I introduce you to the Saturday Evening Post Rosie the Riveter. Now you know. What's that guy, Harvey? What's his name? Paul Harvey, thank you. I want to say Andrew Harvey. That's a different person entirely. So Labor Day is a collective celebration of our doing, right? It's what we do in the world. And if you were here last week, how many were here last week? We learned in a wonderful message about always remembering the difference between our who and our do, right? Who we are as spiritual beings is not defined by what we do in the world. And we remember who we are as we do whatever it is we are going to do. And we try not to confuse the two. And so what I want to talk about today is how do we do what we do in the world without confusing it with our who. Keep our do and our who clear in our minds so that we can do what we do without confusing it with our who. Got that? Or in other words, what is the spirit with which we engage our life's work? What is that? Think for a moment. What is the spirit in which you engage your life's work, or would like to, if not already? What? Who said that? Thank you. When I think about it, I think about service. And for me, service is a prosperity principle. Now, if you put a prosperity teacher on a platform with a microphone, we will find any excuse to talk about prosperity principles, and I've just found one. I want to quickly review when I say prosperity, what I mean by that. What I mean by prosperity is a healthy body that takes us everywhere we need to go, that allows us to do that which we choose to do. Prosperity for me is work that we enjoy so much we don't even think of it as work. We want to find another word for it. We would do it for free. That's how much we love what we do. Prosperity is relationships that are functional and loving and supportive, whether that's a spouse, family, friends, everywhere we go. We have relationships that are loving and supportive, and we love and support those around us. And finally, money is not an issue for us. Anything we want to do, have, or be, if there's money required, the money is there. End of story. So that's my definition of prosperity. Does that work for everyone here? Who could use more? More coffee? We wake up? All right, so the way that we go about living that life of joy and abundance is by certain practices. One of them is we live as a giving person. Now, in church, a lot of times you'll hear about tithing and financial giving, and that is important. That is a way that we can share what we have with the community or person that has inspired us. It's also a challenging topic because that is a way, as you know, that it's a very hot button issue for many of us. Money, if we start talking about giving my money, then that can really make me nervous. That's the very same reason it does that is the same reason it's such a powerful practice. So I invite you to undertake that practice. You'll be amazed, but that's not what I want to talk about today. The other thing that we do is practice forgiveness. Not just now and then, not just on Sunday, but as an ongoing thing that we do in our life, an ongoing practice. And it's easy. I can tell you in one sentence what to do, and then you'll know. And you'll have no lack of forgiveness in your life anywhere from this moment on. Ready to set that intention? All you have to do is forgive everyone all the time for everything. Got that? Simple, so simple. And when we do that, we release the energy within us that's all tied up and hanging on to whatever that thing is, that resentment that we are the ones putting effort into. Sometimes we'll let something go and the other person doesn't even know about it anymore. We were literally the only ones. But you've probably heard that saying, and I think this gets right to it. A lack of forgiveness is like drinking poison hoping the other person's going to die. Right? But really, it's us that's poisoned by it. So when we can let something go, we free up a tremendous amount of energy, which will fuel our abundant living as we move forward. That's why forgiveness is such an important prosperity practice. Another one is to be very clear on what it is we want to have, do, or be. This might be called goal setting, but it's just a mental clarity of what it is that we want. As we become a giving person and give, it's like exhaling. As we practice forgiveness, we're letting go of things. Again, we're exhaling. Being clear on what it is that you want is inhaling. Setting goals is saying, well, I have created a space for good in my life by the giving that I do, by the forgiving that I do. And what do I want to have occupy that space? So that's why we set goals, to bring that into our awareness, into our reality. And the fourth piece of it is to get on purpose with our lives. To have some kind of overarching goal, something that when we wake up in the morning, a big thing that we remember, I picture it like a mountaintop, and that's easy around here. You can see a mountain. So if you wake up in the morning, think about this. If you wake up in the morning and you're a little bleary and you're kind of looking around, remember, okay, what am I doing? And then you see a vision of what? Coffee pot, right? Behind the coffee pot, though, is the purpose that you've chosen, that mountain that you're walking towards. So you say, okay, what am I doing? Oh, right, this is what I'm doing. I'm walking that way. The idea is not, you will get there, but the getting there is not what it's about. It's about knowing which way to walk. What is the purpose? What intention have you set for your life? And doing these four things will create for you a life of joy in abundance. And the fourth one, the life purpose, is really about the doing part of prosperity. And it is, as was mentioned, service to others. I've heard it said that if you want to have $1 million, what you need to do is figure out how to provide $1 million worth of service to the world. You hear that? Provide service to the world. And maybe you don't care about money and you're not walking around thinking, I'd love to have $1 million. But whatever it is that you want, however it is you envision increasing the joy and abundance in your life, the prosperity, having a purpose in what you do, giving service to the world, is how you bring that about. I want to talk a little bit about my personal experience, my call to service. Several years ago, I found myself very, very ill, really delirious. And there was a moment in that time where, now I don't know if you'd call this a vision or a dream or an insight, but my experience was, out of nowhere, seemingly, came this fully formed, very, very clear mission, if you will, or goal or way of being. Let me say what it is, and you can think what you might call it. So it was very clear to me that I was to do three things. One, I was to see God in every single person. Second, I was to reflect that in some way such that each person might be able to see it for themselves, for those who weren't already aware of that. And the third thing is I was to teach other people to do the same thing. Now, I have no idea how to do any of that stuff. But it was very, very clear that that's what I was to do. And where I went with that over time, not instantly, is I thought about who do I know in my life who seemed to be doing those kinds of things. And honestly, the people that I knew who were doing that kind of stuff were unity ministers. And so the part I brought to this, the vision wasn't to become a unity minister. The vision was see God, reflect it, and teach. I chose to be a unity minister because that's what made the most sense for me. Now, another person could get that very same insight and vision and do a very different thing with it, and that would be perfectly right for them. Because there's an aspect to this of choosing that's much more powerful than I ever realized. You know, when I first encountered this concept of life purpose, it was with an uppercase L and an uppercase P, right? It was a life purpose. It was a really big thing. It was like bigger than me, and I felt like I kind of needed to find it, right? Like it wasn't here, it was out there. I need to find my life purpose. And I was open, I would meditate, and I would be open to receiving the wisdom of my life purpose with an uppercase L and P. Preferably, I would like a 3-month plan, 1 year, and a 5-year. And I accept faxes, emails, letters, paper floating down from above. Booming voices would be fine too. Well, that didn't really happen, but what I discovered is I put one foot in front of the other, trying to figure out, how do I do this thing I've been called to do? Is that there was a shift from looking without. Now, this may be familiar, right? This is a core unity principle. What it is we seek is not outside of us, it's within us. So anytime you're looking outside of yourself for something, remember that and think, might I try looking inside for that instead? And there was a shift in me over time where I stopped waiting for the fax or the email with the 3-month and 1 year and 5-year plan, and just put one foot in front of the other and realized I am going to have to make some choices here. This is the part that I bring. I'm the one that decides which mountain I'm walking toward. It's not dictated from on high. But can you feel how that might be disappointing if you were expecting a large vision or some kind of sacred event with chorus of angels and all of that. But what I found out was if I was willing to do that, to say, okay, fine, I guess until then, I'll have to pick something. And then begin doing that thing. And if you can imagine that tiny seeming commitment, that intention that gets set when you make that decision, whether you realize it or not, has so much light and power behind it, it's unbelievable. And when that starts to unfold, you realize, oh, there it was the whole time. I just needed to make that commitment, to do that thing, to bring that service to the world, whatever it might be. Just like that tiny faith the size of a mustard seed will grow into a huge plant. A decision and an intention to move toward what you've decided is your mountaintop will open the tiniest of doors out of which will pour an abundance of light and energy and love, and you'll realize the path for me to joy and abundance, to prosperity in my life, is by providing this service. And it feels like I made it up, but then it feels like something else swept in and took it over at the same time, right? It's the new normal. It's weird. I was talking to Christy this morning before the first service. She says, how's it going? I said, I don't know. I said, there's no normal anymore. And it's a little disconcerting. You know, since I got back here a couple months ago, after graduation and ordination and all that, you know, nothing's quite been, there's no normal. And I'm thinking, well, maybe the new normal is that there is no normal. You know, it reminds me of the two friends, one encountered the other, and one says, hey, man, how's it going? Says, just living in the mystery, man, letting it all unfold. And the first friend says, yeah, I have no idea what's going on either. Now, there's truth to both of those things. They're not saying something different to me. They're saying the same thing. I have no idea what's going on anyway. I was looking, as I heard the beautiful songs just now, look out the window. Well, first look at the window. The window is made of straight lines, right? And that's good because it makes it easier to buy glass and build things that stand up. But look beyond the mirror, the window. There are no straight lines out there anywhere. If you look at nature, this whole concept that it's got to be this and then 90 degrees to this and we build it, that's something that we do. Right? There are no straight lines outside of that window. And maybe that's the way life is. If you step into a place when you say, well, I'm living in the question. I used to always want to know what the answer was. Questions were about answers, right? Because an answer resolves a question, then I can feel okay and stop being in that place where there's no normal and I don't know what's going on. You know, living in the mystery sounds great on a Facebook thing, but it makes me uncomfortable. Or it can, but I'm getting used to it. That's the new normal. So I invite you to be open to that possibility and that way of seeing and that way of being in the world. Knowing that you can choose your direction, and even if you don't know what's going on, you don't know what's going to happen, that's kind of how it's supposed to be, as uncomfortable as that is. I've been given the advice to move out of your comfort zone. And stay out of your comfort zone. And I used to joke, I'm so far out of my comfort zone, I had to have my mail forwarded. And ironically, I moved to Kansas City. And guess what I had to do? I was so far out of my comfort zone, I literally I was kidding about that. Be careful what you wish for may happen. So far out of my comfort zone, literally I had to have my mail forwarded. I had to have it forwarded when I came back here. Maybe that's a sign. I don't know. But be open and willing to be doing that. I want to share a quote with you here by Khalil Gibran. I slept and I dreamed that life is all joy. I woke and I saw that life is all service. I served and I saw that service is joy. There's so much truth wrapped up in that, it's hard for me sometimes to wrap my head around. But what I want you to take from that today is that if you want to experience a life of prosperity, if you want loving relationships everywhere that you go, then remember who you are. We always start with our who. And as you move into your doing, let it be something that you have chosen, that speaks to you, that wakes you up and gets you going in the morning, that reminds you what it is you've chosen to do, knowing full well that when you take that little step, the universe, God, will seemingly conspire to support you. That's why in the story of the prodigal son, as the son walks towards home, the father runs towards the son. If you take one step, the universe will match you tenfold from that. I invite you to put that into practice and see that happening in your life. Let's look at the next slide. If you're not sure what to do, then just pick something, anything. Gandhi said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service to others. Now, you probably read into that, there are two selves in there, right? The first self is not talking about the same one. The one that you lose is the one that needs straight lines and answers and needs to know how everything's going to be. And the self that you find is perfectly comfortable living in full knowing of your true spiritual identity, being okay that you don't know the answers, and living more like nature that we see outside without straight lines. But everything's perfect at the same time. If that feels weird, then you're doing it right. So I want to suggest that if anywhere in your life, recall my definition of prosperity, if anywhere in your life you're feeling a gap in any of those things, whether it be your health, your relationships, your work, your finances, that you undertake to serve other people in the world with no thought of compensation, just to see what would happen. To take that ethic or that idea or that practice of service and serve purely for the joy of serving and see what happens. I think you'll be amazed if you're not already doing it. And if you are doing it, do it some more. There's always more to discover. And if you serve for the joy of serving, I think you will discover, and it's been my experience, you will discover the joy that is in your life. And when you live from that space of joy in your life, with that full awareness of it, that you work to create it through your doing, through your service to others, then all of those aspects of that definition of prosperity will fall in place around you, seemingly by magic. And you're thinking, all I did was get out and serve and not care too much if I'm being given back to, but just to go out and give in any way that I can think of, to push myself and get beyond my comfort zone, whether it's financial giving or volunteering or beginning an exercise program or choosing a life purpose. If you serve from that place of joy, then you will have and you will be living a life of joy and abundance and prosperity. If we look at the last slide. In other words, I like these words. When you are able to shift your inner awareness to how you can serve others, and when you make this the central focus of your life, you will be in a position to know true miracles in your progress toward prosperity. Take that in for a second. When you're able to shift your awareness to service, and you make it a central focus of your life. You hear the intention in that? You make it a central focus. You're not waiting for the world to deliver prosperity to you. You are making it a central focus of your life. When you do that, you will be in a position for true miracles of prosperity to occur in your life. So let's take a moment and we're going to anchor these truths in a time of meditation. So I invite you to close your eyes as you're willing. To take a deep breath and relax your shoulders, relax your jaw. Let your seat support you just as you're fully supported by God in the universe. We relax our feet and legs. And we bring to mind, by intention, an awareness of who we really are. You are a spiritual being with the spark of the divine within you. You are loved and supported in all that you do. And we affirm this here and now as the truth of our being. And from this place, we know that we are free, that it is safe to step out into the world, and know that it is good and right for us to serve others, to serve in the world without concern for compensation. Because when we do that, we bring the truth of our knowingness of who we are into all that we do. And doors open, opportunities arise. We take a deep breath and a courageous step in the direction of our choosing and serve with joy. Hold a vision now of yourself doing that. Complete confidence in who you are. Serving with joy in the world, knowing that all is well. And watch all become well all around you. Let us set this intention here and now today in this holy moment to live and serve from the core of our being, to give freely, to receive freely, to let go of that which no longer serves us. And to allow a life of joy and abundance to unfold before us. We set this intention now. And say, thank you, God, for this knowing and this possibility. We say these words, and because we allow it to be so, so it is.